Welcome back to A Boulder View. Joining us today is the city's Director of Public Works for Utilities, Ned Williams, who's here to talk to us about how the Fourmile Canyon wildfire impacted the flooding potential in Boulder. Thanks for joining us today, Ned.
Thanks, Jody. The Fourmile Canyon fire was devastating for the affected property owners, and now we're having to deal with some of the outcomes of the flood.
Great. So I think that's probably a topic a lot of people don't really typically understand or link together, wildfires and flood. So can you explain, just even in general, how does a wildfire affect flooding potential?
Great question. Wildfires are so hot that they scorch the earth, and they essentially burn the ground, and the ground cover is all burned up, the grass and all the shrubs. The temperature gets so hot that the soil becomes burned, hard, and crusty. As a result, when it rains, instead of the rain seeping back into the ground, it hits the ground and runs off rather quickly down into the streams and the creeks, much like a paved parking lot would operate. Also, sediment and debris run off very easily from the ground, begin to clog the streams and the creeks, and that makes the flooding condition even worse because we lose capacity in the streams and the creeks.
So basically what you're saying is the ground can't absorb water anymore? Is that?
That's right.
And then there's probably also nothing in the way to help, like vegetation, to help trap the water? To
help trap it or slow down the velocity or the speed in which it's running off, yes.
So can you describe how the Fourmile Canyon Fire is affecting or could affect Boulder downstream? Where would water come in? Where would it run off? And what's our potential for flooding?
Good. The Fourmile Fire was west of town, and it essentially is running off into two of the tributaries that come through Boulder. Through Boulder are 14 different tributaries and streams and creeks. Names you might have heard would be Wonderland Creek, Bear Canyon Creek, Elmer's 2 Mile Creek. Those are all tributaries that empty into Boulder Creek but are unaffected by the Fourmile Canyon Fire, though they still will have flooding potential. The Fourmile Canyon Fire is affecting two of our streams and creeks. One is Boulder Creek. We all know where that is. It runs through the center of Boulder. The other is called Fourmile Canyon Creek, which is in the north part of Boulder, crosses Broadway at about Violet, then runs through the Githens Acres neighborhood, runs through what was used to be the old Elks property, and finally empties into Boulder Creek. Those two drainage basins are receiving the runoff as a result of the Fourmile Canyon fire, and have an increased or higher risk of flooding this year as a result of the fire and the crusty surface that's up in that area.
So, so that's if a rainstorm sits over the burn area for some significant amount of time, I'm guessing?
Yes.
But I've also heard, though, that Boulder's often called the #1 flash flood community in Colorado. Obviously, this probably doesn't change that. If anything, we're still #1. But to what degree does the fire actually change our threat?
Yes. So unfortunately, we did retain our #1 ranking for flash floods in Colorado. But because of the fire, the two streams or creeks, Boulder Creek and Fourmile Canyon Creek, have an increased risk for flooding. For example, before the fire, if we had a thunderstorm that had an intensity of maybe 1 inch of rain per hour, west of town, we would monitor that thunderstorm, but it really wouldn't impact us in a dramatic way. Now, when we have a 1 inch rainstorm west of town, the chances that Boulder Creek will be running bank full are very great. And a 1.5 inch rainfall will have some flooding on Boulder Creek. A 1.5 inch intensity rainfall in the Denver metro area happens several times each year. Whether it will happen this year, we don't know right now, but as a result of the fire, the flooding potential on Boulder Creek and Fourmile Canyon Creek have increased because of that additional runoff.
So 1 inch of rain, does it also mean 1 inch of rain in a certain period of time? Because I would think 1 inch of rain over a day or so probably isn't that big of a deal.
1 inch of rain over a day isn't that big a deal. 1 inch of rain in an hour will generate flows in Boulder Creek that will be, again, bank full. A rainfall that's higher than that or more intense, 1.5 or 2 inches in an hour, will also create some flooding. In addition, we're now in the snowmelt period. From the snowpack up in the mountains, we have 30 to 40% more snow and water content this year than in past years. So that snow is beginning to melt and run off and will fill up the rivers and creeks between now and the end of July or into July. And so as a result, between now and mid-July, the potential for flooding on Boulder Creek will be even higher as a result of the creek being full of all this additional snowmelt water, and there will be little place for the rain or thunderstorm water to go.
So with all this increased potential, what do you recommend people do to either be prepared or stay alert?
Great question. So there are a couple things that residents can do and our customers can do. Number one is to monitor weather forecasts for the upcoming day or several days so they're informed about that. In addition to monitoring that, when it is raining, if they begin to see the streams and the creeks getting muddy or begin to hear unusual sounds that may be coming from the high velocity of the rushing water or boulders that are rolling down the creek, that's a time to begin to pay more attention, perhaps even consider moving to a safer location. At time of flash flood, there may be some periods in which power goes off and on. Those are indicators that something dramatically is happening because of the weather. So all those are signs that people can look forward to or look to make some decisions. Also, during a flash flood event, we'll activate the emergency warning sirens in town, and we have about 14 of those throughout our community.
Okay, I was going to ask about those because we hear them tested about once a month, but in the event that there is an emergency, we expect those to go off.
Yes,
right?
those will go off, and those are managed and activated by the Boulder Office of Emergency Management that is also monitoring all the weather forecasts as well as the rainfall gauges and the stream flow gauges that we have on Boulder Creek and some of our other tributaries.
Okay.
They are also getting calls from some of their spotters that will be in the field west of town. Spotters are residents who will be able to communicate with the Office of Emergency Management about the weather conditions that are actually happening on the ground in their neighborhood.
Okay. So I think a lot of people assume, well, I either live near a creek, so I know what to do when I'm home, or I don't live near a creek, so I should be fine. But floods can happen at any time, and people should be prepared anytime they're away from home and they're away from their families. What do you recommend people do to train their families?
We recommend, first of all, making sure that families and businesses know that there are 14 tributaries, streams and creeks that crisscross our community. So even though you may not be living in one in a floodplain, your office may not be in a floodplain, the chances that you'll be driving through or recreating in a floodplain are very great in our community. So know where those floodplains are at. Be prepared because, as you mentioned, floods can occur day or night or on the weekend. Know where your favorite parking location is located because that may be in a floodplain. When a flood happens, it's important not to drive through water that's deeper than 12 inches because cars become buoyant, and more than half of the flood-related fatalities are in automobiles.
Well, we're pretty much out of time, so is there a place that people can go to get more information, to learn more?
Yes, on our website we've got information about preparedness, floodplain information. That website address is boulderfloodinfo.net.
Okay.
And so that will provide a lot of information also. I'd say for all of our residents, be prepared and be aware. That's
Okay.
our message.
Well, thanks for all the information, Ned. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jody. Floods have happened in Boulder in the past. They'll happen in the future. Our geography is such that we're the #1 flood risk community in Boulder, so be prepared and be aware.
Great. Thanks again. For all of us here at Channel 8, that's another episode of A Boulder View. We'll see you next time.